Patrick would never say the word love. So when he volunteers to read the poem for class that day, he does so only on the condition that he doesn't have to say that word. So he reads, and when he gets to that word, he pauses, looks at me, and waits for me to say it, love, before continuing. It sounds a little something like this. The saddest thing in the world has got to be when you love someone unable to provide the love and support you need. And I do it like this dramatically, perhaps to make my students laugh as I fill in the gaps. But I wasn't always capable of doing so. You see, I used to be Patrick. Growing up, I'd become well-versed in death, but also the things that kill us. Cirrhosis, diabetes, suicide, drunk driving, self-destructive behaviors, the list goes on. But this is not to say that everything was negative. We had tradition, community, family, and love, though my young, naive self wasn't always capable of seeing it. So I decided to focus on more tangible things. I wanted to go to Stanford and become a hotshot lawyer working in a big city. Goal-driven? Perhaps to a fault. I designed my life around my ambitions. From point A to point B, my focus was always in a straight line to get me where I wanted and thought I was meant to be. In the fall of 2004, I started college at Stanford University. It was beautiful, full of old and fun traditions like fountain hopping or full moon on the quad. Classes were interesting and innovative, and while challenging in the best of ways, I'll admit, it was a lot harder than I thought it would be as a person of color coming from a small town. When it's printed up in newspapers or people ask your parents how you're doing, it can really feel like everyone in your community knows where you're going to college. It adds pressure. There were times I cried myself to sleep thinking I wasn't good enough or smart enough when it took me hours to do what people did in one. Most of all, I felt like if I failed, I wasn't just letting my family down, but my community as well. Other students in my group of friends who are also from small towns or reservations felt that way from time to time, but it's part of what brought us together, like family. It was like this with Mo. He came from a reservation too. Mo and I, we became friends his first day on campus. His smile and welcoming attitude really made him easy to connect with. But I also think some of it had to do with his 6'1" stature that just gave in to those warm embraces where the person really hugs you, not just barely brings you in. He was just one of those good people who lit up a room with his presence. But in private, we had a special relationship, one where he would walk me to my dorm, and it didn't matter how far or late the hour, just so I would get there safe. He could tell if I was upset or angry or scared and would wrestle and tease with me to make me laugh. Mo was the brother I never had. He was like that for a lot of us. Support was his forte, and his key encouraging phrase of, "Nah, you got this," really made you feel like you did. Have it. What it takes to get through anything. During winter quarter of that year in an online conversation, Mo wrote, "I'm sad." I typed back suggestions of journaling or working out. None of it works, he said. He tried it all, but sorrow still clung to him like a shadow, never leaving his side. I should have paid better attention to that gesture. Mo's reaching out to anchor himself to someone, to anyone, to me. At Stanford, I maintained my tunnel vision, focusing on goals like studying abroad at Oxford because it was prestigious and would increase my chances of getting into the dream law schools. So during my junior year, I went, and I didn't think twice about what or whom I was leaving behind. There are moments you never forget, ones that coil themselves around your DNA. I'd been in England less than a week when the program director called me into her office for a phone call. They're asking that you sit down before I hand you the phone. Tanaya, are you sitting? Yes. We lost Mo. Lost. Stanford had lost somebody earlier that year in a car crash. It had to be something like that. An accident, right? No. Mo had taken his own life. When someone dies, you can't help but wonder, why? Mo made everyone feel welcome, wanted, and validated around him. Didn't we do the same? 2 days later, I flew back to the United States to attend his funeral. I landed in Albuquerque first, and the next day, my sister took me to cut my hair. Something we do when someone close to you dies. The closer they were, the more you cut. If I had been brave, I would have shaved my head bald and raw, but I only cut it to my shoulders. That week remains a haze, but I remember the burial. By then, I'd been to more than 15 funerals, but his was the first where they actually hammered the nails into the wooden coffin right in front of you. I'll never forget that pounding, the wail it produced in me, one that reached a depth I didn't know I was capable of. I want to ask you all to do something for me. Please close your eyes. And in your mind, think of a loved one who's no longer with you. Picture them. Can you remember the last thing you said to them? Was it something supportive, frustrated, angry, or meaningful? Go ahead and open your eyes. I can't remember the last words I said to Mo, but I do know they weren't, "I love you." After the funeral, I decided not to return back to England. I went home to wait out the weeks until I would be able to start my internship working for an Upward Bound program that served Native youth in Colorado. I was only supposed to do a poetry project with some of the students, a handful, but as fate would have it, a college student who was supposed to be a live-in residential advisor with the program canceled, and I was asked to fill in. Had I still been overseas, I wouldn't have been able to take on that extra role. And when I got there, I was given my own group of 14 high school girls, and because I lived in the dorms with them, we were able to get close. Some would call me mom or big sis. In fact, I got to know most of the 85 students who were also from reservations participating in that program. Up there, they gave me my first creative writing class, and the first time I heard students share their stories and witness the bonds and connections that formed in doing so was magic. In each student, I saw a little bit of Mo. I saw myself, and for the first time in my life, I felt clarity. Sitting in that classroom, creating that space, and bringing those voices together, I was exactly where I was supposed to be in the universe. It's been an ongoing 7 years since we've lost Mo, and I'll never know why he took his life or how big or small of a role I played in it, but I do know that he changed my life. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't live with the same passion, dedication, and heart. Mo was a force, and when he died, it was like some of the light in the world disappeared. Maybe I couldn't have saved him, but I committed to filling in the gap. In losing Mo, I learned getting from point A to point B doesn't always mean going in a straight line, but finding the gaps each of us uniquely sees and then filling them in by building a bridge from loss to growth, hurt to healing, and pain to power. I finished Stanford as an English major, and while I didn't go on to law school, I did finish my Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the University of New Mexico. Now I write, perform, run a literary journal, work with youth, and I teach. From the beautiful to the not so beautiful, I teach writing as healing and sharing as savior. Because even though opening up to someone can be one of the hardest things, you never know. Someone may need to hear exactly the words that you're afraid to say. So when I come across students like Patrick, I try to help him believe that love is more than just a word, but a way of life intertwined with loss and learning. And now if I ever come across people who feel that life has left them so broken that they are birds without wings, I tell them that once I lost a friend who I loved. And when he killed himself, his body hung from rope like pendulum, marking the times I never said it enough. So today I make sure I speak, teach, pray, and say, love, maybe even too much. I'll play love on repeat, my love, my love, my love, my love, when my students write pieces weighted in grief. So when the flightless sing, birds fly over the rainbow, why then or why can't we use the resistance life places against us to rise, maybe even save a life, and reignite the light inside each of us?